What if the real reason you feel unsettled is because you were never meant to settle? What if the silence in your soul isn't emptiness, but a whisper inviting you to finally listen? What if God has already written your life's design, and you're just now beginning to trace it? Most people spend their entire lives chasing answers to questions they were never meant to solve alone. Questions like, why am I here? Or what's my purpose? We look for clues in careers, relationships, accomplishments, even distractions. We think if we just get the next thing right, the peace will come. But what if your true peace doesn't come from finding the right thing, but from aligning with the right one? This isn't just a story about purpose. It's a deeper look into why we feel restless in a world full of movement, why we can feel so successful and yet so hollow, why the applause fades and the awards collect dust, and still our souls hunger for something more. Because you were not created to merely survive. You were designed to live with clarity, with conviction, with divine direction. And here's the truth. You weren't an accident. You're not a product of random chance. You were imagined in the heart of God, designed with intention, and placed here, right now, for a reason. But if that's true, then why is purpose so hard to find? It's a question many have asked in silence, a quiet ache behind the smile, a longing that wakes us in the middle of the night. The world tells us to follow our heart, to hustle harder, to climb higher. But no one tells us what to do when all of that still leaves us empty. What if the reason we're so tired isn't because we're doing too much, but because we're doing too much of what we were never meant to do? For years I asked God to bless my plans. I made vision boards. I set goals. I planned the future down to the detail. But nothing truly settled my heart until I changed the question. I stopped asking God to bless what I had built, and I started asking God, what are you building in me? That single shift rewired everything. Because God's blueprint isn't a list of accomplishments. It's not a perfect life plan on paper. It's an unfolding revelation, discovered one obedient step at a time. And obedience doesn't always look impressive. Sometimes it looks like waiting. Sometimes it looks like letting go. Sometimes it looks like saying yes without knowing where the road leads. That's how God reveals purpose, not all at once, but moment by moment. He starts with the heart. Before the assignment, before the clarity, he softens us. He draws us not toward ambition, but toward surrender. And in that surrender, we start to see. We see that purpose isn't out there in the future. It's here. It's now. It's present in your posture of faithfulness. For me, it began with prayer, but not the polished kind, honest prayer, messy prayer, the kind that doesn't try to impress God, but simply invites him in. I stopped rushing my mornings and started asking deeper questions. God, what do you want for today? Not for next year, not for 5 years from now, but for right now. And slowly something changed. Not in my circumstances, but in my perspective. I began to see that God wasn't hiding his will from me. He was waiting for me to listen. He wasn't interested in blessing my hustle. He was inviting me into his rest. That kind of rest changes everything. Because you realize finally that you don't need to perform for your purpose. You just need to receive it. But receiving doesn't mean passive. It means present. Purpose doesn't chase you down while you're running from silence. It unfolds when you make space to hear. And when you do, you begin to recognize divine patterns, a scripture that sticks, a gift that brings others joy, a burden that won't leave your heart, a pain that shaped you. These become threads in the tapestry of your calling. Because God's blueprint is not just about what you're good at. It's about what you're called to. Sometimes they align perfectly. Sometimes your pain will point to your purpose more clearly than your passions ever could. But here's what's always true. Your purpose isn't what you do. It's who you become while doing it. And who you're becoming matters more than what you're achieving. That's why you can't rush it. You're not building a personal brand. You're becoming a living reflection of your Creator. And yes, it will take time. Think of a cathedral, massive, breathtaking, and painstakingly detailed, designed by a master architect, built brick by brick. You may not see the full design yet, but God does. He knows how the heartbreak will become the doorway. He knows how the delay will become the preparation. He knows how every single not yet is shaping your character. The world celebrates speed, but God celebrates substance. So don't despise the slow. Don't panic in the pause. Don't assume silence means absence. Sometimes the most divine thing you can do is wait. And in the waiting, trust that God is building something inside of you that can carry what He's preparing to give you. Because here's the secret. You are the calling. You are the message. You are the vessel He intends to pour His glory through. And that's why your story matters. Even the messy chapters, even the wrong turns, even the seasons that felt like silence. Because when you bring them to God, He turns them into the very soil where your purpose grows. And all of it begins with surrender. Not giving up, giving over your plans, your dreams, your expectations, your timelines, and asking one bold question: God, what did you see when you designed me? Then listening and saying yes. Yes, even if it costs you comfort. Yes, even if no one claps. Yes, even if the road is unclear. Because on the other side of that, yes is something this world cannot offer and will never understand. Peace. Deep, steady, soul-rooted peace. The kind that becomes your compass. When peace becomes your compass, something fundamental shifts inside you. You stop measuring success by external milestones, and you start measuring alignment. The old questions fade. Am I winning? Am I ahead? And new ones emerge. Am I faithful? Am I obedient? Am I becoming who God called me to be? Because when you begin walking in purpose, the pressure to perform starts to lift. You no longer chase applause, you chase alignment. You no longer fear detours, you recognize development. You no longer idolize clarity, you trust companionship with God more than a clear map. This is where true confidence begins. Not from knowing every step, but from knowing who's walking with you. And that changes everything. Because you begin to understand, your life was never meant to impress the world. It was meant to impact it. And not through noise or notoriety, but through obedience. Quiet, unseen, consistent obedience. The kind that wakes up and chooses integrity when no one is watching. The kind that sacrifices when it doesn't make sense. The kind that says, I will still trust you, even when the outcome doesn't match the expectation. This is the essence of living according to God's blueprint. It's not flashy, it's not always fast, but it's faithful. And faithfulness leaves a legacy. Legacy isn't what people remember about your life, it's what God remembers about your faith. Let that sink in. You could build the biggest platform, gain the largest following, accumulate the greatest accomplishments. But if you miss alignment, you'll still feel empty. That's why the blueprint God designed for you isn't about impressing anyone. It's about becoming someone who reflects His heart, His love, and His glory in the everyday, hidden, and often mundane moments of life. Because that's where purpose lives. Not in grand gestures, but in everyday obedience. It's in the phone call you didn't want to make, but knew you should. In the forgiveness you offered even when it wasn't asked for. In the commitment to show up, love well, serve quietly, and live truthfully. That's purpose. That's power. That's what echoes into eternity. I learned this when I found myself in a season where everything looked fine on the outside, but internally I was out of alignment. I had said yes to good things, but not God things. I had filled my calendar, but not my soul, and I felt it. That hollow ache, that invisible weight, that sense that I was moving fast, but not moving forward. So I prayed a dangerous prayer: God, if I've built anything outside of your will, dismantle it. And He did, not in anger, not in punishment, but in mercy. Doors closed, plans unraveled, and in the quiet aftermath, I heard His voice more clearly than I had in years. He whispered, now we can build. That's the power of surrender. It clears the clutter, it silences the noise, it resets the heart. And when your heart is realigned, your eyes begin to open. You start to see that your purpose has been woven into your life all along. It was there in the tears, in the prayers, in the journal pages, in the gifts you brushed off, in the burdens you couldn't shake, in the people you kept loving even when it was hard. It was never missing, just buried, beneath layers of striving, fear, and distraction. But now you're learning to unearth it, to name it, to walk in it. And here's the beautiful thing. You don't need a title to live in your purpose. You don't need a following, a stage, or a 5-year plan. All you need is a yes. Because when God breathes on your yes, ordinary things become holy ground. You might still have questions, you might still feel unsure, but you'll no longer be confused about where your purpose lives. It's in today, in the here, in the now. And the more you say yes to God in the small things, the more He reveals in the big things, one step, one surrender, one moment of faithfulness at a time. This is how legacies are built, not with spotlight moments, but with quiet obedience. And when you live this way, your life becomes a signpost, not pointing to your own greatness, but to God's faithfulness. People will see peace on you and wonder how you found it. They'll feel hope in your presence and ask where it comes from. And you'll be able to say with bold humility, I stopped chasing my own plans and started walking in God's. That is a testimony. And it's not reserved for spiritual giants or perfect people. It's for you. For the one who's been wondering, have I missed it? For the one who feels behind. For the one who's scared to start. You haven't missed it. You're not too late. You're not too broken. You're not too anything. God is not behind schedule with your life. You are right on time to step into His purpose. So breathe, release the pressure, and take the next step, not with anticipation, because you are becoming. You are aligning. You are walking the blueprint God designed just for you. And He's not done yet. Not even close. Hey, Saknyat, when you live from that kind of assurance, where peace guides more than pressure and purpose outweighs performance, you begin to see everything differently. What once looked like delays now feels like development. What seemed like confusion starts making sense, one step at a time. You don't need all the answers because you're learning to trust the one who does. Purpose becomes less about a future destination and more about present obedience. And in that shift, your questions change. You stop asking, what will this do for me? And start asking, who am I becoming through this? You stop chasing outcomes and begin chasing alignment. You don't look for the fastest route, you look for the faithful one. In that space, pressure begins to lift. The weight of performance falls off your shoulders. You realize that you don't have to earn your place, you've already been placed. God isn't waiting for you to achieve something impressive. He's inviting you to become someone obedient. And obedience is where transformation happens. It doesn't always look powerful. Sometimes it looks like getting up again. Sometimes it looks like forgiving the person who hurt you. Sometimes it's making a quiet decision that no one notices, but heaven applauds. It's the daily choice to keep showing up, even when the world doesn't reward it. That's the path of purpose. Not always visible, not always celebrated, but always valuable. Because what's hidden from the world is still seen by God. That truth is freeing. You don't have to compete. You don't have to prove. You don't have to earn. You just have to follow. Follow the peace, not the pressure. Follow the conviction, not the crowd. Follow the still, small voice, even when it's drowned out by louder ones. Purpose isn't revealed in noise, it's revealed in stillness. When you quiet your soul long enough to listen, you start to see how your past isn't a detour, it's part of the blueprint. The moments you thought were wasted become rich with meaning. The places you felt most broken begin to shine with redemption. And you realize God was never absent. He was always shaping something greater than you could see. The times you doubted, the seasons you felt lost, the prayers you whispered in the dark, none of it was in vain. Every tear, every unanswered question, every hidden obedience, it all builds something eternal. This is where the shift happens. You stop measuring your life by timelines and start measuring it by trust. You stop seeing waiting as wasted and begin to view it as preparation. You begin to believe that even in the silence, God is speaking. Even in the stillness, God is working. And the more you walk in that belief, the more confidence you gain. Not in yourself, but in Him. Not because you have every detail figured out, but because you're no longer walking alone. That's what changes everything. You're no longer asking God to co-sign your dreams, you're asking Him to define them. You're no longer trying to get ahead, you're trying to get aligned. You're no longer driven by the need to be seen. You're grounded in the reality that you are already known. That's when your life starts to speak. Not because you're louder, but because you're rooted. Not because you've made it, but because you're surrendered. And that posture, that's what transforms ordinary days into sacred ground. Every conversation becomes an opportunity. Every act of service becomes a seed. Every unseen decision becomes a building block in a legacy that cannot be shaken. Because legacy isn't built in one big moment. It's built in thousands of small ones. When you say yes in the silence, when you choose faith over fear, when you obey before understanding. That's where the blueprint unfolds. And no, it's not always clear. But clarity isn't the goal, closeness is. God doesn't give us full maps because he wants to lead us step by step. He doesn't just want to get us to the destination. He wants to shape us on the journey. That shaping is sacred. It's in the shaping that character is formed. It's in the shaping that trust is built. It's in the shaping that purpose is revealed. So don't despise the process. Don't rush the becoming. You are not behind. You are being built. You are not forgotten. You are being formed. Every step matters. Every yes counts. Every moment of faithfulness is a brick in the foundation of a purpose-filled life. And the beautiful part? You don't have to do it alone. God walks with you, even when you can't feel him. He whispers truth when the lies get loud. He strengthens your hands when they feel weak. He reminds you that he's not just the destination, he's the way. So keep walking, keep trusting, keep becoming. Because you are not chasing purpose, you are unveiling it, one surrendered step at a time. When purpose begins to guide your every step, you start to realize that it transforms not only your direction, but your very definition of success. You no longer ask, am I winning? You ask, am I becoming? This isn't just a mental shift, it's a heart reset. The applause of others grows quiet, and the whisper of God becomes the loudest voice in your soul. And that voice doesn't say, be bigger, be louder. It says, be faithful, be still, be mine. In that space, your view of impact changes. You begin to see that the most powerful moments in life are often the smallest. A glance of compassion, a word spoken in truth, a choice made in integrity. These moments, invisible to the world, are magnetic in the kingdom. That's the upside-down nature of God's blueprint. It celebrates seeds planted in obscurity over fireworks launched for attention. It values the long, slow growth of roots over the fast bloom of temporary success. It honors what is done in secret because God sees in secret and rewards in ways the world cannot. Living like this doesn't mean you become passive. On the contrary, you become dangerous to darkness. Because you're no longer moved by flattery or fear. You're anchored, secure, silent when you need to be, bold when it counts, and above all, consistent. Consistency doesn't always feel exciting, but it is one of the greatest weapons in a believer's life. It builds resilience. It creates legacy. It silences doubt. When you choose to keep showing up, keep saying yes, keep walking when others stop, that's when you begin to live differently. You're no longer tossed by trends, you're grounded in truth. You're not chasing likes, you're reflecting light. You're not building a platform, you're building a life. That life becomes a message, one that says, even when it's hard, even when it's hidden, I will keep trusting, I will keep sowing, I will keep believing. And slowly, people start to notice, not because you tried to impress them, but because your life carries something real. Peace that isn't shaken by circumstances, joy that doesn't depend on outcomes, love that isn't performative but deeply rooted in truth. That's when your purpose begins to multiply. Not because you're doing more, but because who you are is becoming more impactful. You're not just someone who talks about purpose, you're someone who lives it. And that kind of life changes people. Not because you forced them, but because you invited them. Your life becomes a living invitation to encounter God, to trust his timing, to believe that there is more depth, more meaning, more transformation available when we surrender fully. The world says, be impressive. God says, be obedient. The world says, make a name for yourself. God says, let me write your name into eternity. And in that choice, everything shifts. You stop striving. You start receiving. You let go of the pressure to be something great and embrace the peace of becoming deeply faithful. Faithfulness is where legacy lives. You may never see the full impact of your obedience on this side of eternity, but every time you show up with intention, love with purity, and walk in truth, you are part of a story far bigger than yourself. This is the story God is writing, and your part matters, even if it feels small. Even if it looks ordinary, even if no one claps, because heaven sees what the world misses, heaven rewards what the world forgets, heaven celebrates what the world overlooks. So live for heaven's reward. Live for the moment when God says, well done. That's what matters. Not the numbers, not the status, not the noise. Just the quiet yes that echoes into eternity. That's your legacy. And the beautiful truth is, it starts now, not someday, not when you feel ready, not when the circumstances align, now. Right here in the midst of your questions, your learning, your daily steps of trust. So take that step, make that call, offer that prayer, choose obedience over convenience, and do it again tomorrow. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. Because you are worth it. You are worth being shaped, refined, called and sent. You are worth the journey, and so is the world that desperately needs what only you can carry. Your story, your surrender, your light. So don't hold back. Keep unveiling the blueprint. Keep choosing purpose. Keep becoming the person God dreamed of when He first formed you. He hasn't changed His mind about you. He's not disappointed in your pace. He's delighted in your progress. And He's not done yet. Not even close. Trust becomes the foundation of your journey when you live by purpose. Not the kind of trust that comes from getting what you want, but the kind forged in the fires of delay, doubt, and silence. This is the kind of trust that believes God is doing something meaningful even when nothing around you looks like it's changing. That trust says, even if I don't see the fruit, I will keep planting the seed. It doesn't flinch when doors close. It doesn't panic in the waiting room. It understands that in God's economy, nothing is ever wasted. Not even the time you thought you lost. Every waiting season becomes a classroom. Every delay becomes a test of vision. Every disappointment becomes a deeper doorway into dependence. God is not only working on the path ahead of you, He's working in you. He's preparing you to carry the weight of the purpose He designed for your life. He knows that without deep roots, the fruit won't last. So while you're asking for the destination, He's preparing your capacity. And that preparation often looks like obscurity, like serving without recognition, like obeying without results, like loving people who may never love you back. It's tempting to view those seasons as wasted, but they are anything but. They're sacred. God uses hidden seasons to refine motives, to strengthen resolve, to deepen dependence. He is less concerned with how quickly you move and more interested in who you're becoming while you wait. And who you're becoming matters more than where you're going. Because a life of purpose without the character to sustain it is a setup for collapse. But when your character is forged in faithfulness, you become someone God can trust with influence, with assignments, with eternal weight. So if you're in a season that feels slow, unseen, or uncertain, don't lose heart. Don't assume that quiet means forgotten. It could be that God is speaking more clearly than ever, just in a different language, not in outcomes but in invitations. Not in answers, but in whispers. Not in public platforms, but in private process. That process is not punishment, it's preparation. When you shift your perspective to see even the struggle as part of your calling, everything begins to transform. You no longer resent the challenge, you embrace the growth. You stop asking, when will it get easier, and start asking, what is God shaping in me right now? And in that moment, you step into maturity. Not because you've arrived, but because you've surrendered. You've traded ambition for alignment. You've let go of trying to control and instead chosen to trust. That kind of life doesn't chase platform, it cultivates presence. The presence of God becomes your source, your strength, your strategy. You start to walk differently, talk differently, love differently. You're no longer driven by what others expect. You're guided by what God reveals. And that guidance leads to something unshakable. You begin to value what truly lasts. Love that's not self-serving, joy that's not circumstantial, peace that surpasses understanding, purpose that isn't tied to performance. You understand that every yes to God creates ripples you may never fully see, but heaven sees them all. Your life becomes less about arrival and more about alignment, less about proving and more about presence. You live with the awareness that you are participating in a story bigger than yourself, and that awareness gives you clarity in chaos, strength in struggle, purpose in the process. It gives you the resilience to keep going when others give up, to keep praying when you see no change, to keep obeying when the results don't show up in your timeline. Because you trust in the timeline of heaven, that trust becomes a light. Others begin to see it. They may not have words for it, but they'll sense it, your steadiness, your peace, your quiet boldness. They'll ask, what is it about you? And you'll know. You'll know it's not confidence in your plan, it's confidence in God's. You'll know it's not about your skill, it's about your surrender. You'll know it's not because of what you've done, but because of what He's doing through you. And in that knowing, you'll walk humbly, boldly, freely. You won't need permission to be obedient. You won't need validation to stay faithful. You won't need confirmation to keep showing up. You'll be living by blueprint, not feelings, by calling, not convenience, by eternal truth, not temporary trends. And that kind of life, it cannot be shaken, because it's not built on performance, it's built on the presence of God. So don't rush through this season, don't resist the shaping. Let God build deep. Let Him root you in truth, let Him strengthen you in silence. Let Him anchor you in peace. Because when the doors open, when the next assignment comes, when the fruit starts to show, it won't just be a moment, it will be momentum. Momentum built by trust. And trust takes time, but it's worth every second. Legacy isn't something you leave behind when your life is over. It's something you live now, moment by moment, choice by choice. And when you walk in alignment with God's blueprint, every ordinary action becomes infused with eternal significance. The words you speak, the way you love, the decisions you make when no one is watching, they all echo beyond today. Because purpose doesn't end with you. It flows through you. It touches your family, your friendships, your community, your generation. This is why the process matters so much. Not because God needs your performance, but because He desires your partnership. You're not just following instructions, you're co-laboring with the Creator. And every step of surrender adds another stroke to the masterpiece He's painting with your life. What may feel small now will one day be seen as monumental. The late nights in prayer, the quiet yes when no one applauded, the integrity you kept when compromise was easy, those are the pillars of purpose. They are the sacred foundations upon which legacy stands. The world may never celebrate your faithfulness, but heaven does. And it's that eternal applause that truly matters. The temptation will always be to chase what's seen, to measure your life by likes, shares, or the size of your platform. But you weren't created to impress crowds. You were created to impact eternity. An eternal impact comes through obedience. Sometimes that obedience will look like bold moves. Sometimes it will look like hidden faithfulness. Both are powerful. Both are holy. Both are part of the blueprint. That's why you can't afford to compare your calling. You are not behind. You are not off course. You are not disqualified. God's plan for you is still unfolding. And your best days of purpose are not in the past. They are being shaped right now. So don't shrink back. Lean in. Let this moment be a declaration. I will live on purpose. I will trust the process. I will say yes, even when it costs me. I will live for something more than applause. I will leave a legacy of obedience, love, and unwavering faith. And you don't have to do it alone. You're not the only one seeking clarity. You're not the only one feeling the weight of calling. You're not the only one wondering, God, am I on the right path? That's why this space exists. At Think Fresh Daily, we're building more than content. We're cultivating a community. A place for people who are tired of surface-level answers and hungry for eternal truth. People like you who want to walk in purpose, not performance. Who want to hear God's voice above the noise of culture. Every message, every reflection, every story is created to stir your spirit, challenge your heart, and align your steps. Because you were never meant to drift. You were made to live on purpose. And when you live that way, everything changes. Your decisions carry weight. Your presence brings peace. Your life becomes a signpost that says, there is more, and you can find it too. So stay connected, subscribe, lean in. Let these words be more than inspiration. Let them be the beginning of transformation. Because your story is still being written, and the author is faithful. He's not rushing you. He's not disappointed in you. He's building you. He's shaping you. He's leading you into the life He imagined before you ever took your first breath. So keep walking, keep trusting, keep becoming. Your unique purpose is not a mystery to God, and every day you choose surrender. Every time you say yes, every moment you stay faithful, you are unveiling His divine design. This is your legacy, and the best is still ahead. So don't stop now. Join the journey, live on purpose, and let's keep walking together here at Think Fresh Daily.